You need to prove to me that you're capable of doing that. Unless I will not be convinced. And what he said was very logical, practical, and professional as well. So for 2 years, I was struggling to manage both things,
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Yes. Hello and welcome to the Shared.care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you a foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own interest to help others. And today it is my great pleasure and honor to have with me Samuel Gladstone. Now, Samuel is an industry expert guiding professionals towards success through tailored mentorship and support. He loves to network, interact, and collaborate with diverse employee backgrounds and cultures. Gladstone strives to constantly create productive outcomes and build high-performance teams. Welcome, Gladstone. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Dan, for the introduction. Really excited to be part of your show. Thanks for your kind gesture to accept my invitation and be a part of your podcast. Really appreciate it.
No,
looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. I love reaching out with people around the world, and COVID created that, as much as it was really bad for so many different things, but it really opened the door as to the possibilities of what we could actually do, it's a wonderful thing. I had created so many new friendships because we can actually communicate like this, or people accept it. We always could, I guess. From that perspective, though, let's start off. Let's travel back in time, jump in the Wayback Machine. You might remember a movie called Back to the Future, and they had a silver DeLorean, which Doc Brown invented, and you hit 88 miles an hour, you can travel through time. Do you want to jump in the driver's seat of that, put your foot to the floor, hit 88 miles an hour? I'll hold on the passenger side, and we'll go back in time. And can you go to some places where you had some challenges, some things that came up, specifically ones that helped shape you to become the person that you are today, to help the people the way you do?
Oh, yes. Very interesting question and probing question as well. In fact, maybe 15 years ago, I started my profession as a chemical engineer. And I worked extensively in the process industry, oil and gas, refineries, etc. The job situation is pretty tough because of the nature of the work, the risk associated, etc. So after 10 years, I really was disappointed that am I really doing what I really like? And it was very surprising for me because after putting in a lot of sweat, energy, and toil, I really didn't know what I was doing in my life. So I started to pause and reflect, and then understood this is not really what I enjoyed. I was just doing a job. It was just earning my livelihood, taking care of me and my family. And that's it, nothing more than that. I was not really enjoying what I was doing. And that's where it took a turning point. And then I said, okay, let me reflect, take some notes, and understand where I'm going. And that's when I really realized that communication was one of my key strong areas. And I thought I could use it to further my career. And that's where I took a drastic change from my career path, from moving from being an engineer to a communication specialist. And the transition was never easy because nobody was willing to accept me as a communication expert, because working in a manufacturing domain and then as an engineer, they thought communication couldn't be a strong point. Then I had to prove, and I had to do a certification, and then I went through a lot of rigorous circle before I could really establish myself as a communication specialist. It was a big challenge. And in fact, making a career progression or a career shift is never easy after a long period in one domain. And it was a big learning experience for me. It taught me humility. It taught me patience. It also made me more committed. and
Mm.
and made me to network with a lot of people, learn and learn and relearn many things. So it was quite an enriching journey for me to take that diversion. But then it was very fruitful at the end, and I felt very happy that I took that change at the right point in time.
Wow. From that perspective, and I love where you went there with that, and appreciate that you opened up and shared that about this, taught you humility, and you had to establish yourself as a communication expert. Can you talk us through what that was like? Because, I mean, you've had this 10 years as a chemical engineer, you're quite secure in what you did, and then you've stepped out to go, well, actually, I really like doing this, if I've heard you correctly. I like,
Yes.
and I want to be a communication expert because you feel that you've got that. But then when you've put yourself out there, you found that people haven't run to you and gone, oh my God, you've solved all my problems. What was that like?
True.
What was that like to go through that process? You know that you're really good at it, you love it, but other people are not seeing it.
Yeah, a very, very interesting question, Damien, and I fully agree with you. It was never easy for me because most of my request for a job or an opening was completely turned down. They would never even believe me saying that I could write well, talk well, or communicate well. They said, absolutely, you have no knowledge about this communication domain. You have engineering background. You have worked in a manufacturing setup. You have more to do with the chemical industry. What is that you can do on a communication perspective? That was pretty challenging, and it was also very insulting and humiliating for me. But then what it did, it was quite disastrous, and I was feeling very humiliated and insulted. But then I took one step at a time. So I wanted to upskill myself. So what I did was I went and did a technical writing certification from a Canadian university. That gave me some sort of a professional edge. So I really knew how to customize my content to a specific audience, write the way it should be, keep it short and simple, and all the things that are associated with a technical writing perspective. And that gave me a professional edge. And once I did that, I started to get some small jobs like writing an article, a blog post, or a marketing collateral case study. One by one, I started to build my portfolio. And I did it for free. I never charged any of my clients or customers, but I really wanted to understand what the length and breadth of this technical writing area was all about. And that was when I got a wonderful opportunity from a training institute in Sydney, Australia. They are an engineering training consultant called IDC. So they gave me an offer to write a book for them. So, and the biggest advantage was since I was a chemical engineer, they wanted me to write a book on chemical engineering. It was a big opportunity for me to utilize my domain knowledge as well as my writing communication skills, and it was a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate my skills. So after 6 months long period, I did publish the book. I came to Australia to Perth, and I received my first book, hard copy, as a gift. In fact, it was such a huge feeling for me because it gave me a lot of confidence and the proof that I could write well in different domain, and people recognize my work, and that's how it changed my perspective, and that's how I started to build my personal credibility and branding as a communication specialist. It was never easy, but then you need to be very committed. You need to be receptive to feedback. You should be willing to learn from your mistakes and take the next step forward. So I did all these things, but then I really knew that I was in the right path because I was really passionate about this. I was very purposeful, and that really pushed me to a next level.
How did you maintain that passion from that perspective? Because as you said there, you've put yourself out there, and you're initially passionate about it, but then you put yourself out back and you get no, and then you're not getting paid, but you're going to do some work for free, which you do. Did that give you more confidence, even though you weren't getting paid, that you actually could, even though you could actually put that out there and help people? Did that give you some confidence?
Yes, it did, because I really wanted to get some sort of a recognition as a motivating factor so that I can go to the next level. So initially, I wasn't looking for any remuneration or compensation, but only to prove myself as a communication expert. And that's what I was striving for more than 6 to 1 year. And once that really happened, then clients came to me. It was the other way around. So that one year or so was really a very difficult phase for me because there was no inflow of revenue. But I fully relied on my confidence, my resilience rather, and then I started to prove myself to other people that I can do a good job. So most of the recommendations, testimonies was the most rewarding experience rather than the monetary part.
And how did that transition from that perspective where you're doing some work for free, trying to establish yourself, and then if we look at through your career, you've then been involved with some very large global companies, ABB, in
Yes.
Venice,
Yes.
Inventus, sorry, yeah, and
Yes.
it's how did that transition happen? Did it just
Yeah.
magically? Did you have to put yourself out there? How did you?
Yes, it was not easy for me. In the sense, like all the companies, what you mentioned, has a chemical engineering background. So they're into industrial automation, robotics, and power transmission, conventional stuff like that. So one of the things that really worked on my favor was because I was the chemical engineer, the domain knowledge was of great value to them. So I could write what I could understand, what I've seen on the field, my hands-on experience all work together. And once you know the product or service, then you're the most qualified person to write about that. You're not going to write it blindly. So once I start to talk the language about a particular domain or an industry or an equipment or something like that, that really swayed in my favor.
Yeah.
So I was trying to combine my domain knowledge as well as my communication skills to put across to the company saying that I can do a good job for you. And that really tilted in my favor. And in those days, this type of combination was very rare because most of them could be expert, but they absolutely fail in terms of communication. And if they are communicators, they don't have the domain or technical background. So it was a big gap there. And I tried to bridge the gap. And that's how I got into this chemical company. They actually welcomed me.
Yeah, I love that. That's so you exploited a particular gap in the market where they needed the technical knowledge, and the communication skills as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And both these companies, I mean, this competency was not there. I was the first guy to be recruited, and I went ahead and built a team of more than 50 to 100 people.
Wow. Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you. So it was a fabulous job. It was yeah.
Yeah. Well, from that perspective, because I mean, you can see when you're talking about it that you're actually, very proud of that work and very, very passionate about that work. Talk about, tell us about your experience from before that, though, because you spent 10 years, you studied chemical engineering. What was the reason for studying chemical engineering? And then you're doing a job that, for 10 years, you said you just weren't passionate about it. And I know we talked in the pre-show, you wanted to explain a bit about a job, career, and a calling. Is that, can you weave that into that discussion as well?
Yes, when I started off as a chemical engineer, there was absolutely no background for me. I just wanted to get a job. And those days, there's nobody to guide me. I come from a very remote town, but there's absolutely no access to internet or nobody to guide or mentor me. So I just wanted to do something that will give me a job. And the only option that was available for me at that point in time was chemical engineering because the other mainstream branches was beyond my reach. So I just took chemical engineering without any background, without any knowledge, just like that because I got a very good score from my school leaving certificate. And based on that grade, I got for a very good opening in a very good college in India. But then after doing my chemical engineering, absolutely I was lost again. I really don't know what to do. But I just wanted to get a job. So I got a good job in one of the biggest companies in South India. It was not that, I was lagging somewhere. But then the problem was whether I really wanted to do chemical engineering, whether I really wanted to be a chemical engineer was a question mark. So it was just for a career or for a job, is that what I started out with. But it was really good. I learned a lot of good things, but I was not really enjoying, So it was a difficult proposition working in the process industries because you have to go in the shifts, morning, day, and night shifts, and the conditions are pretty risky. You have to work in a dangerous environment, hazardous nature, pollutions, etc. And your health is going to be taking a hit. And there's absolutely a very slow progress in terms of your career progression. The salaries were pretty low when compared to other industries. All these things were against me. So for 10 years, I was struggling just to keep myself afloat, to get a salary. And then that's where I thought that this is not what I really wanted. And that's the time when I took this drastic change.
But from the perspective, I mean, what's that like to be in that position? Did you need to have that job for security for family, or was it what was the motivation? 10 years is a long time to do something that's that you're not really passionate about.
Maybe this could be a strange reason for me. It's not that I was trying to manage my livelihood, but then in my town or a city, without a job, people don't respect you. So that's the cultural background from the place where I live or I was brought up. So at the moment you come out of college, you need to have a job. That was a lot of peer pressure and domestic compulsions that made me to get a job. It was not that I was really struggling for something, but then it was to manage the pressure from the society or the people around.
Yeah, so you didn't want to be
Because
seen.
the moment yes, as somebody who's whiling away, who's not doing anything or not productive, something like that.
Yeah, I remember that experience when I was in the army and had to jump out of an aeroplane, and I didn't want to do it, but I wasn't going to be, the person that didn't do it while everyone else was doing it.
Okay, yeah.
So
Because the another reason, Damien, is like the place where I grew up is a highly caste-based society, and maybe you would have heard a lot of things about the Indian culture. So the moment you come out of your college, you're supposed to work, you're supposed to get married very quickly, have children, and that's how the society expects you to do. And if you fail to do that, then you are actually dishonoring your parents, your society, your relatives, things like that. So I was caught in between. Absolutely, I have no pathway to get out of this, and that's where I was pushed to this corner. Not that that my parents wanted me to do that, but I had no other option.
And then you kind of get stuck in that. That's where you're at, and it's difficult to get out of that. How much of that becomes habit, where you're in that position and you're not really able to take that step? I'm trying to get to what was the actual motivating factor. You've gone along for 10 years, and then you've decided, look, this is my calling and I'm going to do that. What was it that gave you that courage to make that step?
Yes. In fact, I was also watching what my friends and colleagues were doing elsewhere, and they were into the information technology domain, electronics and communication, computers, and they were doing a good job, and they were getting a very good salary. They were going abroad, and they were very happy. At the same time, I was feeling a bit disoriented and not happy about what we were doing. So I felt there was a huge gap. Maybe I chose a long mainstream engineering or I was in the wrong industry or domain. Something was basically wrong somewhere, and that made me to reflect up 10 long years, and then I felt enough is enough, and I said I should make a change here. And that's where then I went and took some support from my mentors and guides to really explore what I'm really good at. And they told me that maybe you should take a check at where you can proceed further. And they said that communication could be one of the strong areas. And then I latched on to that, and then I took a change from there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was both of an introspection and external support as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned mentors there. That you spent time with your mentors. What was it? Yeah. I mean, how did you know to actually speak to some mentors, and how did you find those mentors?
Yes. There are two mentors that come to my mind. One was from my college as such, like he was my professor and he was retired. So I went to him and told that, this is what I'm doing, I'm not really enjoying. So he told me that, you seem to be good in your communication skills. Why don't you see that if you get into an area where you're able to write or be part of your marketing communication or something to do with writing or public speaking, thing like that. And that's the one thing, one input he gave me. Another mentor was from my church. So we frequently meet, and then he said, Gladstone, maybe you need to go in a different way, see where you can actually leverage your competency. And I find that you're good in communication. So why don't you explore that and see if you can fit into the scheme of things, and then take a break or do some certification or upskilling and then take the next step forward. So this is how I was influenced by these two mentors. And apart from that, I did my own self-reflection, and then I said, okay, I'm on track.
Yeah. So from that perspective, when you had the mentors, what was it that enabled you to listen to what they had to say? When I say listen, because a lot of times what I've seen people do, someone will say, you need to do this, and they'll ask for advice, and people will give them advice, and they'll say, yeah, and then they'll go and do something exactly the same as they did before. They won't actually integrate it. What was it from your perspective where you actually went, that's something I need to do?
Yeah. So these mentors guided me as to the why part. The why part is critical as far as the mentoring is concerned. So they told me, why is that you need to do that? So they were able to give me some case studies, some examples, some real life situations for me to understand and realize that that is the way it should be. I was able to. I was convinced. I felt that I was in a position to do that. I was confident enough to take the break and then move forward. And they were constantly in touch with me. In fact, I was in touch with them. And then at any point in time, they were able to support and clarify my questions, my concerns. So it helped a lot. And based on their support, their advice, their insights, and based on whatever I was able to do, it all worked together for me. And I was not hesitant. I was very receptive to the feedback. They were very harsh at times. They were giving. They didn't hide anything from me. They were very transparent. So, but that was very difficult to accept. But then I said, no, it is the right way. I should follow that. I went back to them and clarified, and then moved forward. So it was good. It was a learning experience. It made me feel humble. It made me feel receptive to feedback, to take active actions, and many things like that.
You mentioned that it was harsh to listen to that. Do you think, is that from that perspective? Because a lot of times the troubles that we have, and Sophocles said that it's a difficult thing to look at one's troubles and accept that you yourself have caused them. Is that do you think that's part of the reason why a lot of people don't make that change initially? That it's more painful to accept that that they're causing the problem, so it's easier just to go along with that because that's not painful enough yet.
Well, what I felt, Damien, that there are two things that really struck me. One is the passion, and the other one is the purpose. So when they told me that you're really passionate about communication and you really have the objective of being a communication specialist, I was not able to discover it myself. So it was only the mentors who could open my eyes. That was the key change, So though I had that, I was not able to manifest that. It was hidden. And the mentors told that, yes, you had this potential. Why don't you make a try? And that's where I was initially fumbling and frustrated and disappointed. But when they gave me the push, the encouragement, the motivation, it really helped me. And when I said harsh, they were very open and transparent. It was not that they wanted to hurt or humiliate me, but they were very open and transparent, saying this is the way you need to move forward. When I started to procrastinate, they said, no, don't delay any further. Already you've traveled 10 years down the line. You can't wait anymore. Start working. And that's the encouragement or the feedback they constantly gave me. They pushed me in the right direction.
Was that helpful, having that same, that sounds like it was a combination, if I'm hearing correctly? They were pushing you, they were open and frank, we put it that way, or harsh.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it sounds like they also created a supportive environment as well. As much as it was kind of, use the word tough love. It was, you need to hear this. And it was that the environment that was created? Yes,
you're right. Yes. It was a very supportive and a cordial environment, because in a mentor-mentee relationship, it is for the mentee to reach out to the mentor. The mentor is going to only guide. You need to take the onus, the responsibility, and be proactive. So the moment I felt that there was something, a gap or an issue, I really ran to them and asked for the advice or counseling, and they were more than happy to help me, because they were also telling me that I'm on the right track. I was making some improvements. They could see some change in me. They could see the body language, the way I was reacting, the way I was responding. It was making a gradual transformation, and they said, yes, Gladstone, you're on the right track. Don't delay it. Don't procrastinate. Don't be disappointed. Things will start moving forward for you. And that's where I started to take up the assignments for free. And it was not good feeling. After working 10 years, it is not easy to do a job for free. But then these folks really pushed me hard. First, you need to establish a personal credibility. And it took a lot of time. Credibility doesn't come overnight. And I really had to strive very hard to establish myself. And once I did that, and then things started working.
And so from that perspective, when you're working with employees now, and you're working with employees and employers, when you talk about, look at your own experience with the mentors that you have, how important is it for employers to create an environment where people can have that support, but also get that mentorship, but also to have a bit of that tough love in there as well?
Yeah. In reality, in big organizations, the mentor program is not there because most of the companies are result oriented. They want to take care of the customers, targets, profit, etc. So in my early organization, ABB, it's a quite big company. It's a multinational and more than 40,000 employees across the globe. I was in a big R&D center in Bangalore, in India, where more than 3,000 employees were there, and I could see the gap. There were a lot of attrition. People were unhappy. We had a lot of silos in the organization. There were a disengaged workforce. And then I felt that there was a need to create a mentoring platform across the organization. And I was the guy who went and talked to the management saying, let's start off with at least a couple of mentors and see how it goes. So we created a pilot project, and the results were really good. And that's where we went and set up a formal mentoring establishment in our organization where people were free to choose their own mentors. And we could see visible results over a period of time. And people, instead of exiting, they were talking to mentors to see how we can improve in your organization, in your career path, that fill the gaps. Now we talk to a specific expert and guide and coach and do many things so that the employees becoming productive. And over a period of time, they also became highly productive team members. No, that's the big change we could see. So initially, it was not easy for me to convince that we should have some sort of a mentoring support in the organization. But we did a pilot project. And once it started to show results, then the management felt, yes, it is really working. And we now have a formal mentoring platform across the organization where employees are encouraged or motivated to choose their own mentors and then start interacting with them. And it also became a part of the performance management system. It became a best practice.
Right. And from that perspective as well, when you're working with the companies and you've got disengaged employees, and there's a turnover employees as well. Is that more to do with money, or is it more to do with the environment that are people working in?
It's a mix of both. I mean, one is primarily the salary of the compensation part. You're right. Another one is the work environment. Both are an equal mix, according to my experience.
Mm-hmm.
From the salary part, what we did is we used to gauge them in terms of their technical expertise, their productivity, etc., and see whether they are really matching the industry standards. If there's going to be a shortfall during the annual performance reviews, we ensure that they are given a hike so that we are happy about that and it is on par with the industry standard. So that is pretty much taken care of in case there is going to be any sort of an abnormality once we recruited the party. Part B is the work environment. That's where I really come in, because the culture is extremely important for the employees to thrive and flourish in an organization. If it's going to be toxic, people leave. So I also played a role of an employee engagement manager, and when I see this type of issues across across the teams or groups, I took the responsibility of ensuring that these concerns are rectified. For example, a person wanted to work abroad in a foreign assignment, but the person was not given an opportunity for different reasons. But when I found out that the candidate had the qualities, then I went and talked to the management and said, let's give them give this candidate a try. And we did make that employee go abroad, and that person did a wonderful job. And that person became one of the high-performing team members for a long time. So the only thing, you need to give it opportunity. And second thing is you need to be sure about the rewards and recognition system. You should be not biased. You should be transparent. You should be timely. So we also set up a rewards program so that the employees across the organization were feeling recognized for whatever work they had done. And it was done in a very public way. It was done in a town hall meeting where others were able to appreciate and recognize what this person done. And they prepared their own success stories. They published in the in-house magazines. It was in the portal. So there was many ways we tried to encourage employees. So that way, we actually demolished silos across teams. We promoted collaboration, and we increased networking, and ensured that the employees are really happy, they're engaged with work. So it was a Herculean task, but over a period of time we ensured that it happened, and it was yielding very good dividends in the long run.
So when they've got a task like that to solve, because as you said, it's a Herculean task, it was massive. How should we break that up between both the employees and the employer? Is there any onus on the employees to contribute to that, and how would you break up that task to best to solve that problem?
Yes. Yeah. What I believe is like the organization culture is both ways. It is not only the management is responsible for doing that. The employees equally have a role to play. So in any engagement program, we ensure that there's a right mix of both the management, the leadership, and the employees in the platform. So it gives some sort of a balanced view, and there is transparency there. There is trust and respect, because if you're going to have it top down, then employees don't trust you. They think that it's eyewash and they don't believe you. So once you have some sort of a liberal mix of employees as well as the leadership team, then there's a lot of collaboration that happens. So they know that exactly what is happening, and they also become a part of the system. And they also support, saying that, yes, this is good for us. We really believe you, and we want to support this, things like that. So it's a mix of both employees and the management team. And how it translates, like, it's not a one-time affair. It's reviewed by the management once in a quarter, along with the concerned group heads and the division heads, etc., along with the concerned employees or the council representatives, so that they know that what is happening. And the results are also published and sent back to all the employees. Nothing is hidden, so it's very transparent. And they know that the organization is really serious about the employee engagement. It's not just on paper, but it is done practically.
But from that perspective, as you say, keeping it transparent, I mean, when we're talking about in today's work environment, there's a lot of competition is quite fierce. Obviously, yes, with competition from not just within your own area, but also to globally. There's that competition, and we've got to stay afloat. We've got to continue to innovate. We've got to continue to grow, find new ways of doing things. Yeah. How does what sort of environment creates what creates a safe environment to enable that type of innovation to happen for employees to want to actually contribute and solve problems or find new ways of doing things?
I was really expecting this question, Dan. A very interesting question, and I love the answer that. Because in the earlier organizations, it was the biggest problem for the management. And I was, as I said, I was working in a research and development organization. And believe me, R&D organizations have to be creative in India. And that didn't happen in the company for a long time. Though we had a huge resource of people, domain experts, scientists, and people from all walks of life, but the creativity was missing. Most of the people just walk in and walk out saying that this is my job, 9 to 5. I don't do anything beyond that. It's not part of my performance management system. Why should I stretch? All these questions were asked to us, and it was really suffocating. It was very frustrating for the management to think how to break this sort of a negative approach and then bring the people to a more innovative culture. And it didn't happen overnight. So the thing what we did is, as a management, we created a portal called Idea Portal. It was nothing but a simple online mechanism. Okay? So what employees were supposed to do is they need to just key in the data as to what they think would solve the organization problem. For example, it could be something with an administrative issue, or it could be something to do with their office environment, or it could be something to do with the product service. It could be anything. The employees are expected to key in the data along with their ideas, suggestions, etc. Okay, and these ideas then go back to their respective group managers or division heads, and they are supposed to take a look. And if they find something very worthy, practical, and logical, they call the employee and ask for further details. What was the idea behind that? What was the logic behind that? And if they find it was very constructive, it was really beneficial, then this employer, along with the group manager, they went and sat with the respective division heads and thought and brainstormed whether it could actually become a part of the intellectual property of the company. Believe me, it was such a wonderful initiative. And after going through a series of revisions, updates, etc., at the end of the day, after more than a year, once this mechanism was started, we had really 20 intellectual property rights recorded for a company from that particular location. It was such a fantastic job. It's creating one intellectual property per year is some big task, and employees were able to create 20 intellectual property rights for a company. And the biggest change is because they were able to find solutions for our own problems, because they understood the problems better than the customer or an external consultant or somebody working elsewhere. And they were able to key in their ideas, share their thoughts, and bring in a different perspective and things like that. And as an organization, we were able to give it environment. So we also created an idea room. It was a room where it was empty. People can just walk in, just scribble whatever they want, and then go away. And they can come back, add on to the ideas. Some other employee can get into that and add something more to that. And that's how we see that idea, then ideate, and then bring it to the next level. So it was a different approach we took, where people had the flexibility to be open, transparent, and then start feeding in the ideas. That was one way of doing things. Other one was trying to solve our own organization problems. The third thing, what we did is we tried to bring in some experts who already seeded or are ideated or created some good product innovations, and they came in and shared their ideas, their perspectives, and that also helped our employees to think in a different way. So all these things really helped us, and over a period of time, we could really see the flavor of research and development among the employees. They were talking a different language, they were more creative, they were very innovative. The monotony was going. So that was the big change.
And how do you, with that, working through that, how do you create an environment where people stay motivated? Because sometimes in those work employment spaces, you have a couple of people or maybe one person that just not on board, might be a bit negative, bit of a downer. How do you manage to keep the team motivated if you've got that environment?
Yeah, it did happen that. So there were a lot of employees who were very reluctant, very shy, and very rude as well. They said, "Why is that I should share my idea? Others will come to know of that. I will not take the credit. It's not a part of my performance appraisal system. It is not a part of my job. Why should I spend more time on creating ideas?" So all these negative reactions did come to us. But then one by one, we talked to them and say, "It is not for you. It is also for your career progression. You will get recognized. The ideas will be recorded against your name. You're going to add value to the customer. You're going to improve the brand image of the company, things like that." We slowly brought them into our own area, give them the confidence, and then they started to believe and trust. And we also demonstrated that. It was only not talking this, but walking the talks. So when people started to feel that, yes, my idea is getting into a real-time commercial prototype or a beta or alpha version, customers are going to appreciate. The whole credit was given to the employees. So in the town hall meetings, what we did is we called these employees and we asked them to share their experience of how they went about creating the solutions. And they felt really happy because in front of a large crowd, when they felt that they are being recognized, that was the biggest recognition what one could give, more than any gifts or anything that can accompany as a part of the rewards program. And we also took care of them during the performance appraisal. So that way, it really worked for us. And almost most of the employees were feeling happy about this initiative, and they took part very actively, and they changed their perspective, and it really worked in our favor.
Yeah, I love that. From that perspective as well, when we're looking at the dynamics between the employer and the employee relationship, today we've got the demographics catching up with us, which we always knew was coming. The baby boomers are retiring, and there's not as many younger people coming into the workforce, which has changed that. I remember when my dad was working, there was a lot of employees. So if you didn't perform well, you could just get somebody else because there were so many people out there. But in a lot of countries now, that demographic has shifted. There is not as many employees out there. What can be done to attract good quality employees?
Well, in the current context, as you rightly said, the Generation Z is actually catching up, and they want everything to be done in a very fast and rapid environment. And organizations are really struggling to cope up with their expectations, and rightfully so. And the senior people, they are in tune to us way of working. They are patient. They know exactly that things will take time to mature or grow or things like that. But the younger generation are highly impatient. So I have worked with quite a few young people, and they want to get promoted the next year when they join the organization, and it's not going to happen. But the challenge is how to keep them happy. So as long as you're able to meet their expectation one way, for example, they want the jobs to be flexible, and definitely the hybrid way of working is to a certain degree helping them out. So they don't want to come to office every day. They said, "Oh, maybe 3 days a week I work from office, and another 3 days I work from home." They're happy about it. And you give a lot of apps and other technology supported platforms so that they can work seamlessly instead of coming to work to office daily. They feel that some of my other time I can do something else more productive. So it's not that they want to only engage with work. They want some sort of different flavor to the works, and the organizations must be in a position to give the flexibility, the adaptability, and things like that to keep them engaged. And it's not easy, but it is the way it should be, because right now, if you see the attrition is going to be on the higher side if you're not keeping the younger generation taking into confidence, and they are also looking at a very high salary, so it should be a balanced mix. But the key challenge is now, are you in a position to give that engaging platform for them to work? And as long as you're able to do that, then your employee experience and people will stay.
Yeah. And from that perspective, if we now switch it to the employee, what do employees do that you've seen? What have you seen them do that creates roadblocks in their career progression?
Yes, there are many things that really make employees struggle in terms of their career progression. The thing is, like the first thing is they're not bold enough to come and talk to the manager saying that this is what I really wanted to do. They think that things will start to move by themselves. It doesn't happen in the current environment. So the first thing is you need to be proactive. So it happened for me as well. I want to quote a very classic case study that tells you that what the challenge is all about. After being a communication specialist for 10 years, again I was feeling a bit low because I was doing the same thing again and again. I thought, why don't I explore and take something better? But that opportunity was not there. So what happened is, as a part of the management team, I found that there was a lot of gaps in terms of employee engagement. The management was struggling. And whenever the boardroom meeting happened, there were a lot of discussions, debates, brainstorming, etc., how to keep the employees engaged, and they walked away. And the same thing was discussed time and again, but there was no solution to that. So when I was attending one of these meetings, I told my boss I would take it proactively and find a solution for that. And the entire management fell for that because they felt that this guy was coming, was proactively coming to us and saying that he would take ownership and drive and bring up results. So I took up a prototype and told this is the way we should run an employee engagement program across the organization. They gave me the bandwidth, and I proved to them that this would work. And then after a period of 1 year, I completely moved from being an internal communication specialist to an employee manager across the organization. So it does that you need to be very proactive. You need to be open to challenges. You need to be receptive to feedback. And the biggest challenge then, when I said that I wanted to take up employee engagement, my boss said, "Okay, now you make the move." No, he said, for 1 year you need to take up both responsibilities. You need to take care of internal communication. You need to take care of employee engagement. You need to prove to me that you're capable of doing that. Unless I will not be convinced. And what he said was very logical, practical, and professional as well. So for 2 years, I was struggling to manage both lanes, So I was doing my regular job. I was also doing my other responsibilities. But that's where your passion and the purpose kicks, You don't get demotivated because you're volunteered to do something for the organization. You feel very happy about that. You don't get stressed and you feel very motivated. And once you start to see the results, you know that you're in the right direction. And that's where the appreciation comes, So that's how the career progression happens. It's not that it should be passive about it. You need to be proactive. You should find the opportunities. You should be willing to reskill, upskill. Okay, you should be receptive to feedback. Or you should be committed. You should be in a position to network and collaborate. A lot of things that comes into play. So things will not be for you. You need to be proactive, and you need to take the first step forward, and then the career progression will happen. And you need to have a honest and open discussion with your line manager, saying that this is what I wanted to do 5 years down the line. Can you give me the scope? Can you give me the platform? Do I have the bandwidth to do that? And definitely, most of the managers will be more than happy to provide that platform or the scope for the employee to improve. And that's how things will work in real time. It's not that it will come to you. You need to reach out to the openings and then see whether you're the right fit to take the next step.
And when you're talking about having honest and open communication, what are some of the blocks that prevent effective communication, which create sort of ineffective communication?
Yeah. So when I was talking to my boss, the things that really pretend or maybe a bit scared is, will my boss penalize me if I'm honest? Will he think otherwise? Will I get a negative feedback? I think this was some of the things that was going through my mind, because honestly, that's how you feel when you directly talk to your boss. So you can't go and directly say to your boss that I'm unhappy with my job. Then you will ask me, why is that you're in the job for such a long time? So you should have your data points ready. So when you go and talk to your manager, you should have your justification, your business case of why is that you want to move to the next role. Are you qualified? Are you interested? Have you some case studies? How it will be beneficial to the organization? This is how I approach to my manager, saying that this is what I can do, and this is what I'm planning to do, and this is how I bridge the gap for the organization. And then please give me that opportunity, and they'll be more than happy to do that. So you should make your homework and then go and talk to the manager and actually happen. And that's what I mean by saying it's a honest and transparent relation. You should have all the data points. And if they're going to give some feedback to you, you should be ready to accept that. And then say, okay, this is how I will consider your feedback, and then refine my plan and then move forward.
So from that perspective, that's putting the research into place. So getting all that data and to support what you're doing. Is there ways to communicate which facilitate that conversation in a much more effective way?
Yes, it can happen in during the performance management system reviews. That's one channel that can happen, but you need not wait for that. At any point in time, that's what I did. I just know when I made up my mind that I should take up an additional responsibility. I had all these business cases with me. I set up a meeting with my boss. I said, "This is what I want to do." It was an impromptu meeting, but I had all my data with me. I was looking very confident. I was prepared to take up the challenge. I was ready to receive any feedbacks as well, and it was a very open and honest answer, very open and transparent discussion. It was, it didn't, the next, it was not that the next minute my boss said, please go and do. He said, maybe I will think and then come back to you after a month. And that's how it happened. In real time, they have many other tasks to do. So for 1 month, I was still waiting for the answer. It didn't happen even after that. So they said, let's see how it goes. And it took a lot of time for me to follow, to persevere, to convince before things could fall in place. And that's how the roadblocks are going to be in real time.
Love that. And from the perspective of career progression, is there anything else you'd like to cover off and share with the listeners in respect of that?
Yes. In terms of career progression, you need to be very sure that it is not a job. There's a clear distinction between a job and a career. In a career progression, you need to be proactive. You need to take the ownership. Okay. You need to network. You need to collaborate. You need to upskill and reskill. Okay. And you need to be sure about the opportunities that you can fit in. And then do the homework and then approach the right person, and then things will fall into place. And it is not that it will happen overnight. You have to really struggle a lot. No, you need to be sure about whether it's a passion, whether you are really result oriented, and then you have this map in place, and then take one step at a time, and things will surely fall into place.
I love that. Gladstone, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show, sharing the details of the work that you do there and your transformation from that, having that job that you didn't like to now living, the passion that you enjoy. Do you want to tell us a bit about the services that you offer and how people can contact you?
Yes, Damien. Right now, as I said, I segregated into job, career, and then the calling. So right now, I am in the phase of calling. So I like to do something back to the community or volunteer or share my insights and all. And that's why I became an industry mentor. So right now, what I'm doing is I interface with a lot of students from different universities. I help them to understand a specific domain. For example, right now I'm mentoring more than 40 MBA students who are in the process of completing that program. I help them to write project reports. I share my industry insights of what this project management is all about, how they can apply these concepts in real time, stuff like that. So that is how I position myself. So here I'm not looking for any remuneration or attractive compensation, but then trying to share my knowledge or insights or experience so that others can be gained. And that's how I intend to do in the coming days. So my approach is simply to leverage my skills and competence to help the students community or the professionals or the organization so that they can take corrective action or fine tune whatever they do so that it win for both of us.
Fantastic. And what's the best way to reach you as well?
Yes, sir. I mean, I am on LinkedIn. I have my contact email ID there, and my mobile number is there as well. I don't have a web site as such, but LinkedIn is where I'm very active. And I quickly, if anybody is going to DM, surely I will respond back.
Fantastic. Yes, and we'll put all those details in the show notes for the listeners so you can contact Gladstone that way. Before we go, if you were to leave the audience with a key wisdoms, what would be the nutshell? What would be the key takeaway that you would want them to take from this interview?
Yes. The key message is what I would like to share is more than speed, it is a direction that counts. It's not about the velocity, it's about the direction, the path you're taking. So one step at a time, a measured move, and then you gain the momentum and then you start moving. And then if you're sure in the right direction, I'm really you can be very confident that you're going to hit the goal post or you can reach a desired destination. That's my summary. The direction is very important. It's not the velocity or the speed.
Get clear about where you're going. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I love that. Gladstone, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. There's so much knowledge in there that you've shared to digest. listeners, I'd really encourage you to go back through and have another listen to that, because there is such a lot of knowledge in there. But Gladstone, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show and share your wisdoms.
Thank you very much, Damien. I really appreciate your guests inviting me and accepting a request to be on a show. I think I've done justice to whatever questions you have asked. In case I missed out anything, I will be more than happy to add on to the show, or anybody's going to ask any questions to me. I'll be more than happy to respond and clarify that.
Fantastic. There you have, listeners, that reach out to Gladstone. He'll more than be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, Gladstone. Look forward to catching up with you again in the future.
Yes, Damien. Thanks a lot, Damien. I really appreciate your gesture, your kindness, and putting the efforts to organize this show. I really respect that.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.